It is Friday, July 26th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very fun, get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Friday. It was all about the guard escape. More guard escapes, more guard escapes, more guard escapes. Specifically, mount. I'm sorry, I kind of goofed that one. Mount escape. Anyway, so yeah, lots and lots and lots of mount escapes. And I really enjoyed all of them. One from a regular mount, and also we did some additions to it, and it was a slight variant on the old school Oompa escape. But then we did one that was kind of new, and I had a little bit of trouble adjusting to the arm movement on it because it's from a high mount. You know, if your opponent has knees like right up in your armpits and shit, you know, it's like, okay, how in the hell am I supposed to navigate this thing? And it not quite that high, but pretty high, you know, like right up to your elbows and stuff. And so it was bumping forward, grabbing the arm, and then navigating it over to the other side of your opponent and grabbing the back of the arm there and holding it in place while you buck again and simply sweep your opponent. And I thought that was pretty nifty. However, I kept having a little bit of difficulty with it, and there was some issue with the initial delivery of it, because you gotta, I guess you have to reach over and grab their hip after you've secured the arm. Reach over and grab the hip, and then roll them out. And like I said, I had a little bit of trouble adjusting to it, but otherwise, it was pretty productive. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I hope I will never, ever, ever, ever have to employ it in real life or in competition, because mount is pretty much Fucksville. I mean, there's some stuff you can do for mount, but it's not a good position to be in. It's a position that I find myself in more times than I would like, but that's what I'm saying. I'm speaking from experience here. It's not a good position to be in. So anyway, we did some positional sparring, and mostly it was just to get out from mount or to secure the mount, one of the two. And I didn't have much trouble securing the mount, and escaping the mount was pretty easy for me. Or I shouldn't say easy, but I mean I found that I could do it, you know, and I was able to do it relatively frequently for the 2 or 3 minute period that we had. So I think that was pretty cool. But the next part of it, though, was to add in submissions and whatnot, and on that one, I managed to take it to armbar twice, and then my opponent finally caught on the third one. He yanked that fucking arm back. Man, I couldn't grab it fast enough, but you know, it's good. It shows me that he's advancing, or he's thinking about what's going on, and you know, and trying to make adaptations. And you know, he's a lower belt than me, so of course, you know, I kind of like that. But I think he's still having the same issue that I occasionally still have, is over breathing. You know, really breathing too hard and you know, working way too hard at it. You know. And again, that's something that I think that we all fall victim to occasionally, but it's controlling it. It's holding that position of peace, you know, where you're just taking it away. You know, you take away this, you take away that. Next thing you know, you got your elbow up behind the knee. You're navigating it over to the side, and you're getting around the guard. You know, and like I said, if you just take it easy, breathe. You know, it's like, it's the hardest fucking thing to remember, though, because the other person's trying to kill you. So it's like, you know, I mean, if you're rolling with a really, really competent player, man, they got you on the defensive 24/7, and so it's like, you know, you might think you're pulling out and whatnot, but no, you're just pulling into the next thing that they're guiding you into, and it's like, motherfucker, he's ahead of me again. I'm sure it's something that never leaves in jiu-jitsu, that it's something that's continuous, and I really enjoy it. I guess that's what keeps me coming back. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. I know it's kind of keeping it a little short and sparse, but like I said, we didn't do a whole lot of individual stuff. I mean, we stuck pretty much to the program of escaping from the mount, and like I said, I really enjoyed that a lot. And as far as our first dance goes, I think it's time for it. A little bit of body count. Talk shit, get shot. First dance here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Retreat. And as far as what we're going to get into today, I came across this, and I've been seeing this all over my Twitter feed, and I'm not sure how serious to take it. I don't really think too many people are actually going to have this issue, simply because I don't think enough of you own enough cryptocurrency to really matter in this. But beyond that, I believe by and large most people are probably going to ignore this. Largely because the cryptocurrencies don't belong to any one government. And so there's always this talk about regulation and shit. But the problem is that invariably we come across this issue where certain individuals are involved in cryptocurrency, and they've been moving millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they happen to be pretty high in government, and they don't want to report on their cryptocurrency. They don't want to disclose their cryptocurrency holdings. So when it comes to actual implementation, we see one of two things: either A, uneven application of the law, or B, pretty much ignoring the law. And I suspect in this case B will probably be the big one. Anyway, so this is on Bitcoin news.bitcoin.com. Oh, and by the way, that's not advice. That's just my belief about how this whole thing will shake out. And so yeah, this is on news.bitcoin.com by Jamie Redman. And I'm assuming yes, penis on that one, just because it's IE instead of Y, I guess. 10,000 American cryptocurrency owners will receive warning letters from the IRS. And this is, authored July 27th. So this person, Jamie, is from the future. So anyway, so here we go. Through compliance efforts, the Internal Revenue Service has collected 10,000 names. Yeah, in other words, they got your exchange to rat on you. The IRS Media Room has published a press release explaining that the government tax agency plans to send letters to Americans who own digital currencies. The organization's announcement, published on Friday, says that the letters will be sent to taxpayers who have participated in virtual currency transactions or otherwise did not report past transactions properly. The IRS calls the letters of recommendation, quote, educational, and started sending the notices last week. Through IRS compliance efforts, the tax agency has obtained the names of more than 10,000 Americans who will receive this correspondence. Quote, taxpayers should take these letters very seriously by reviewing their tax filings and, when appropriate, amend past returns and pay back taxes, interest, and penalties, IRS Commissioner Chuck Redding explained, quote, the IRS is expanding our efforts involving virtual currency, including increased use of data analytics. We are focused on enforcing the law and helping taxpayers fully understand and meet their obligations. The Virtual Currency Compliance Campaign addresses individuals and businesses who don't comply with the U.S. tax code by using, quote, multiple treatment streams. The IRS highlights that cryptocurrency compliance follows, quote, general tax principles applicable to all transactions in property. Yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want about it. It's somebody else's property, not yours. The initial testing grounds for the campaign begins with the Withholding and International Individual Compliance Unit led by Director John Cardone. So apparently they're going international first. Enforcement campaigns and the promised issuance of guidelines concerning the tax treatment of digital assets. The news follows the recent enforcement campaign the tax agency started in order to combat non-compliance. Through outreach, the taxpayer examinations, the IRS started the campaign by issuing educational resources, audits, and criminal investigations. The IRS recently announced that the tax agency would be issuing guidelines on the tax treatment of digital currencies. Quote, we strongly urge the IRS to issue updated guidance, providing additional clarity for taxpayers seeking to better understand and comply with their tax obligations when using virtual currencies, a group of bipartisan congressional leaders wrote to the IRS Commissioner in September of 2018. Quote, I share your belief that taxpayers deserve clarity on basic issues related to the taxation of virtual currency transactions and have made it a priority of the IRS to issue guidance, Rettig wrote responding to the request. News.bitcoin.com spoke with Node 40 CTO Sean Ryan last June, and he said the issuance of the new guidance is long overdue. Quote, new guidance will be forthcoming and will address specifically the three most talked about uncertainties: acceptable methodology for calculating cost basis, and acceptable methodology for assessment cost basis, FIFO, specific identification, etc., and treatment of forks. Ryan told our news desk, quote, I do believe it will be this year, he added. Yeah, whatever. Q1, how is virtual currency treated for federal tax purposes? A1, for federal tax purposes, virtual currency is treated as property. General tax principles applicable to property transactions apply to transactions using virtual currency. Q2, is virtual currency treated as currency for purposes of determining whether a transaction results in foreign currency gain or loss under U.S. federal tax laws? Answer 2, no. Under current applicable law, virtual currency is not treated as currency that could generate foreign currency gain or loss for U.S. federal tax purposes. Cracking down on non-compliance and the tax agency's ongoing focus. Furthermore, over the past couple of years, various three-letter agencies like the IRS, FBI, and others have been prosecuting a slew of Americans for illegal money transmission, particularly traders who utilize local Bitcoin's exchange. On July 9th, a slideshow created by the IRS Cyber Crimes Program Manager James Daniels was published online and proposes draconian, where the fuck did I put it? Draconian tactics to investigate crypto users. The slide suggests investigating a person's social media accounts and questioning family members. If the needed, agents can request a grand jury subpoena in order to obtain records from Apple, Microsoft, and Google. When the New York Times questioned an IRS representative about the educational letter situation, the agent declined to reveal where the tax agency received the names of the 10,000 individuals. Coinbase! NYT also asked Coinbase if the IRS letter recipients stem from when the IRS compelled the company to forfeit data on 13,000 users. A Coinbase representative declined to comment on the subject. Yeah, you know where the fucking information came from. It came from fucking Coinbase. In regard to the letters that will be delivered this August, people will receive 3 different versions: letter 6173, 6174, or 6174A. All of the notices, Letter 6173 requires a signature from the recipient under perjury that they are compliant with the U.S. tax code. Quote, all three versions strive to help taxpayers understand their tax filing obligations and how to correct past errors, the announcement states. Quote, taxpayers are pointed to appropriate information on irs.gov, including which forms and schedules to use and where to send them, the press release adds. According to traders on the Reddit forum Our Bitcoin Markets, a few individuals have already received letters and assessments. The IRS announcement on Friday emphasized multiple times that there will be continued tax enforcement and investigations. During the end of the press release, the tax agency stressed, quote, virtual currency is an ongoing focus area for the IRS criminal investigation. The press statement also refers to Notice 2014-21, the only guidance the agency has ever issued in regard to digital assets. Essentially, the 2014 documentation states that virtual currencies are considered, quote, a property for federal tax purposes, and those who wish to comply should follow general practices. Toward the end of the IRS announcement, the agency noted that it will issue, quote, additional legal guidance in this area in the near future. Even though the IRS hasn't issued guidance in 5 years, the agency still warns that enforcement against non-compliance will continue to the full extent of the law. Quote, taxpayers who do not properly report the income tax consequences of virtual currency transactions are, when appropriate, liable for tax, penalties, and interest. The IRS press release specifies, quote, in some cases, taxpayers could be subject to criminal prosecution. What do you think about the IRS sending, quote, educational letters to more than 10,000 American taxpayers this August? Do you think it's okay that the IRS enforces the law while the agency still hasn't issued clarified guidance since 2014? Let us know what you think. You know what? I'll be really clear on this. I don't think the IRS has any basis to tax cryptocurrencies. The fact of the matter is that you cannot be held accountable for the actions of a fucking cryptocurrency dev. And if they do something fucking weird, like do a fork or some shit like that, or a fork results on the network, and the two forks are sustained, you know, that they don't die off. That can happen, and there's 1,000,001 factors that can make that happen. I think that there's too much of a rush to assume that this stuff is cement. You are literally talking about quicksand. At any time, a fucking glitch could show up in Bitcoin's code. Somebody could exploit it, and people can lose millions and millions of dollars at any time. You know, so the idea that you're going to be able to put it to somebody because, you know, they showed an appreciable gain or some gain in monetary value over a fiscal year, it's fucking silliness. It's absolute silliness. All they could really tax you for is realized gains. Realized gains, not estimated gains, not what you currently own. Realized gains. And that you would have to tax like at the point of the gain when the gain was realized. So, you know, say it like Coinbase, if you were to liquidate some Bitcoin to US dollars, that would be the point to introduce some sort of taxation, not on your fucking income tax. I think this is the part of this whole problem is that people want to treat it like things that we already have legal context for. And I'm sorry, cryptocurrencies are so different from anything that we do have any kind of context for that we're always going to run into these issues. And non-compliance, I'm sorry, it's not so much because people want to tell the government to fuck themselves, so much as it's pretty pretty impossible by the standards that we currently have. And clarity, regulatory clarity, in my mind, that's them saying to us, this, if what you're doing doesn't fit this description, it's not currency and can't be used as money. If it does fit this, then you have to get licensed, and all your miners have to get licensed. And I'm sorry, that's not how this shit works. That's not how any of this shit works. And it's not how any of this shit will work. We've already seen where regulation points have been put on cryptocurrencies and what the effects have been. We've seen where they've tried to put all kinds of sanctions and whatnot on Venezuela, and where it's only turned into a premium. They've tried to make fucking cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency mining implicitly illegal. But it still goes on there. They have a lot of relatively free electricity because they've got a lot of hydroelectricity, I guess. But they've got all this electricity and they mine with it. I mean, it's mining follows the energy. It's like where the energy is cheap and it's convenient to do it, people set up mining. We're seeing some of that transition to Iran now, where they've got a significant amount of relatively cheap electricity. It is because of a managed market and whatnot. But we've got Chinese, they're looking at setting up shop in Iran. And from what I understand, there's already been some migration of hashing power to Iran. So, again, the terrain for this is changing so much. The only point that I could think of where there would be somewhere where you could insert a tax, again, would be at the transition point where you go from one currency to another. But I think even that'll go away. That what we're going to be looking at is the value transitioning to the coins themselves, and your value in the network being what you can throw at it. And that'll translate into national value. And so the more kind of restrictions and barriers that we try and set up now, the worse off we're going to be a little bit later on, when countries that don't have the same restrictions are blowing us the fuck out of the water. They're producing way more hashing power than we are. And that is the new paradigm of competition on this planet. It's going to be how cheaply you can make the cryptocurrency for your own people to mine. Because who has the Bitcoin will be the better off. And so I've got this article here, and I think this is a transition that we're going to see a lot more of. And not just to Bitcoin or even national coins. I think when national coins are compared on a market basis with other cryptocurrencies, once people get used to the idea of using cryptocurrencies at all, they're going to seek to advance their own interests. And if that includes switching from Petro or USD or whatever the fuck to Dogecoin or Verge or Litecoin or any other coin, that's what people are going to do. So I got this article here. It's on BitcoinExchangeGuide.com. And I think this is an aggregator site. I'm not 100% sure. Let me check and verify here. Yes it is. Yes it is. Bastards. So let's see, where is this thing? Shish kebab. Damn it, Jim. It didn't give me the right page. Alright, Venezuela CCNs. Damn it. I don't think they put it to the right link. No, they didn't. Alright. Anyway, so here we go. Largest Venezuelan department store accepts petro crypto as a means of payment. And this is by Nirmala Velupillai? Or Velupillai? Velupillai. My apologies on that. I'm going to assume no penis here, though. July 26, 2019. Here we go. It has been revealed that Venezuela's largest department store, Traki, will now be accepting the country's national cryptocurrency, Petro, as a means of payment, reports CCN. According to the claims made, said the news was not boasted about, but rather witnessed at the department store as a sign. Images of said signs have since been made available, in which they read, quote, "Petro accepted here." The news outlet further shared that Traki is not offering this option to all of its branches as of yet, adding that Caracas will serve as a trial run to assess its overall success. Whether this news is factual or not was initially doubted until the National Superintendency of Crypto Activos confirmed its like on Twitter, as seen in a series of tweets below. It shows some signs. Yes. Okay, cool. This isn't Traki's first endeavor within the cryptosphere, as the department store has been contributing to the overall adoption since 2018. Traki started accepting cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and other altcoins, along with the Petro. The latter's inclusion led to difficulties that stemmed from trying to convert the crypto into fiat currency. This ultimately led the company to halt Petro from its operations back then. In terms of what changed since last year, especially for Traki to reconsider its likes, has not been reasoned as of yet. Interestingly, the popularly used cryptos in the country include both Bitcoin and Dash among Traki customers. It has been argued that moving forward, employees need to be more informed of said acceptance, and that the Petro requires further improvement for it to fully operate as a means of payment. That's been an issue for the Petro to begin with. But as I said, I think that's it. It's a means that they're going to use, just like this. I got one on Bitcoin Magazine. Venezuela uses Bitcoin to circumvent U.S. sanctions. And I don't know about the entirety of this article as of yet. I have not read it. But I will say this right up front, that I believe whatever crypto adoption is happening in Venezuela is happening primarily at the peer-to-peer individual level. That it's not necessarily a state thing. It's not necessarily a corporate thing. You know, it's not something that the U.S. government can point at and say, "Hey, look at you! God damn it, stop doing that." It's individuals. It's people buying fucking groceries. Okay. So here we go. Venezuela uses Bitcoin to circumvent U.S. sanctions. This is by Landon Manning. It was authored July 26, 2019. So yes, penis. In a bid to circumvent U.S. sanctions, the government of Venezuela has begun its first experiments with a program to convert tax revenue into Bitcoin and trade it for fiat currency at foreign exchanges. Holy shit. Oh God. Oh, this is hilarious. Oh. The details of this plan were revealed in a report from the Spanish-language ABC International, which claimed that the Venezuelan government is currently only testing the project at the Marqueta International Airport, IAIM. IAIM is the largest airport in Venezuela for international flights, and all international flights are required to pay a specific tax to the Venezuelan government. To maximize the productivity of this tax revenue, these taxes are run through an app using the Jetman Pay system, which uses a digital wallet to automatically convert these gains into Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is then traded at exchanges in various rival nations to the United States, such as Russia and China, for a steady influx of USD that international sanctions cannot touch. The usage of Bitcoin as a way to circumvent international sanctions is by no means a novel concept in the crypto space. The thoroughly sanctioned nation of Iran, for example, has become such a hotspot for mining operations that the government had to pass tariffs to discourage the practice's impact on the power grid. I'm sure it didn't discourage it much. Ordinary Venezuelan citizens have been employing Bitcoin to circumvent sanctions for several years now, but the government's scheme is a particularly unique case. Having launched an oil-backed cryptocurrency, the Petro, in 2018, this airport scheme is now an attempt to circumvent sanctions using the tried-and-true international reliability of Bitcoin. ABC International's report mentioned that there are currently plans to expand this endeavor in two important ways. Not only is the Venezuelan government planning to expand this tax-to-Bitcoin operation plan at all major airports in the country, but it is also set to use something similar for international flights attempting to refuel. Planes stopping at these airports nationwide will have to fill their tanks courtesy of the state-run oil company, which will also be plugged into this new Jetman Pay app. With the value of the bolivar fluctuating so wildly, this will give the Venezuelan government a steady access to the world's reserve fiat currency, regardless of what the United States government has to say on the matter. Holy crap! That's pretty significant. Okay, this isn't just mom and pops buying groceries. This is the Venezuelan government giving the big FU to I guess the U.S. State Department or whoever it is that's trying to put the beat down on their economy. Hey, this is the new game. They're all worried about Facebook and what kind of stuff that Libra will enable, but it's already happening. It's been happening for the last decade. Banks and trading houses, they've all been reviewing this stuff, and all of the big guys are in it. I mean, shit, Goldman Sachs has their own fucking stablecoin. So does, what was the other one? Chase? No, there's another one. JP Morgan? Yeah, JP Morgan has one too. So, I mean, this is not a new thing. Okay, and it's, again, those are just affirmations that cryptocurrencies do have value in moving monetary value. The big question is, who is going to get the benefit of it? Currently, you can get the benefit of it. Without any government help, without any corporate help, if you're involved in cryptocurrencies and you've got monetary value in cryptocurrencies, you don't need anybody else. You just need the network to be there to process your transactions, and that's pretty much it. This idea that we're just going to replace the U.S. dollar by putting cryptocurrencies out there, national cryptocurrencies, I think it's silly. Mostly because we have things like Ethereum and Bitcoin and XRP and BCH that we could be trading in. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. I got some Slayer going. I like Slayer. But we're not going to start off with Slayer. I've been wanting to play a little bit of Probot. So that is where we are going. Here it is. Red War. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Gorod with the Sentry. So as far as where we're going to go next, I got this article here on Bitcoin.com. And I think we're going to see this a lot more elsewhere in other countries. But here it is. Iranian government official resigns after drafting, quote, flawed crypto bill. This is by Kevin Helms, and it was authored 4 hours ago. So yes, penis. Crypto recommendations heavily criticized. India's cryptocurrency bill has been drafted by an interministerial committee headed by former Department of Economic Affairs Secretary Subhash Chandra Garg. The committee began working on crypto recommendations since November 2017 and finally submitted its report with a draft bill to the Ministry of Finance on July 22nd. After both the report and the bill were made public, Garg tweeted that, quote, his committee is very receptive and supportive of distributed ledger technologies, but private cryptocurrencies are of no real value, rightly banned. Let's see. His tweet did not fare well among the Indian crypto community as comments soon flooded his account in response. Some criticized his definition of private cryptocurrencies. Quote, "Sir, BTC is not private, it's more transparent than your INR," the comment reads. Others pointed out that crypto is the future in advanced countries, and banning it would cost India jobs, investments, talent, and more. I would argue that the same could be said for any jurisdiction. The community was also quick to point out that cryptocurrency is not banned in India, despite Garg's tone, which could be misconstrued otherwise. A number of people contested the committee's finding that, quote, there is no underlying intrinsic value of these private cryptocurrencies, with some arguing that embracing DLT while banning cryptocurrency is ludicrous. News.btc.com recently reported that the content of this bill, including crypto-related prohibitions and offenses. Garg unexpectedly quits. On July 24th, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi reshuffled his top-level bureaucrats and appointed Department of Investments and Public Asset Management Secretary Atanu Chakraborty as the new DEA Secretary. Garg has been appointed Secretary of Ministry of Power, primarily responsible for the development of electrical infrastructure across the country. According to local media, he is unhappy with the shift and has subsequently applied for voluntary retirement. He made a final tweet from his DEA Secretary Twitter account on July 25th confirming this story. Quote, handed over charge of economic affairs today, learned so much in the finance ministry and economic affairs department, will take change in power ministry tomorrow, have also applied for voluntary retirement from the IAS with effect from October 31st. Last tweet from this handle. Garg's exit has given Indians some hope as they see a possibility that the new DEA secretary could take a more positive approach to cryptocurrency. Quote, good riddance for not understanding basic crypto uses and biased report written to the government. I hope the next person in office after you is educated enough, one Twitter user commented. Many others shared this sentiment in their own comments. Quote, with cryptos you proved your inability to grasp new technology and its adoption, another declared. Someone as far as accusing Garg of ruining people's livelihood and fleeing when the situation got out of control as people became upset. Quote, you should be jailed or an investigation should be launched against you for the deterioration of the Indian economy, according to one user. Another wrote, quote, The entire crypto community in India is happy to know you are quitting. Nearly all of the responses to Garg's final tweet as DEA secretary are about crypto, with some people still asking him to change his mind about banning it before he leaves and ensuring its regulation. Crypto currently not banned in India. The Indian government has recently confirmed that cryptocurrency is not currently banned in India. Shri Anurag Singh Thakur, Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance, told Ryan Sabha, the upper house of India's parliament, on July 16th that the government has not prohibited cryptocurrency in the country. Quote, this Garg Committee report and draft bill will now be examined in consultation with all the concerned departments and regulatory authorities before the government takes final decision. Quote, after this, if the government decides to go ahead with the ban, this bill will be presented in Parliament for debate and vote. If it's approved by the majority, it will be sent to the President for his approval, as per Article 111, explained Nishal Shetty, CEO of local crypto exchange Wazirx. Quote, only after his assent can a bill become an act of Parliament. He further cited one of the recommendations in the report stating that, quote, it is also possible that the government may establish a standing committee to revisit the issues addressed in the report as and when required. Bill and report dated February 28th. Even though the Interministerial Committee report, IMC, was made public on July 22nd, it is dated February 28th, which some criticize as being too outdated given recent major developments such as the G20 summit and the release of new crypto standards by Financial Action Task Force. The FATF guidance was released on June 21st. India, along with other G20 nations, has reaffirmed its commitment to apply these standards. Sumit Gupta, CEO of local exchange CoinDCX, shared his thoughts with news.bitcoin.com, stating that, quote, the report cracks fundamentally at places. There were few flaws pointed out in its understanding of DLT/cryptocurrencies and seems dated, 5 months old. The Indian Supreme Court is expected to address the IMC report in the upcoming hearing of writ petitions against the banking restriction by the central bank. Gupta believes that, quote, this document, which is framed prior to India's commitment to the FATF recommendations, shouldn't be set as the benchmark for the Supreme Court hearing, adding that, quote, hopefully the court asks the DEA to review it again and make a fresh recommendation in view of the major global developments since. The report has completely ignored the FATF guidelines, which clearly states that crypto is not a threat to the global economy and can be regulated properly. No, actually it can't, but let's ignore that. Flawed crypto report. The Wazirx CEO believes that everything is wrong with the committee's report. Quote, it is unfair to allow a committee made up of non-technologists to make a decision on innovative technology still in the nascent stage. It's shocking to think that people from the industry were never consulted before preparing the report, he opined. Even the classification of cryptocurrency is flawed, he detailed, adding that the committee recommends a ban on the use of crypto as legal tender or currency without mentioning other possible classifications such as asset, utility, or securities. Quote, it shows that they don't have enough understanding of crypto, he remarked. More importantly, they don't actually have any power to avert anybody from using cryptocurrency, so what's the point of saying anything, really? Continuing. Before publishing the report, the committee claims to have studied how a number of countries treat cryptocurrency. However, Shetty pointed out that some of the inaccuracies. For example, quote, "The report also incorrectly mentions that crypto is banned in China, but in reality, holding crypto is not banned. Actually, mining crypto is not banned. Actually, there's not much that is banned in China." He clarified, noting that recently Bitcoin was legally recognized by a Chinese court, whereby it was concluded that it should now be considered as digital property. The CEO continued, quote, "I hope that the Indian government will keep an open mind and not take such a regressive decision that will push us decades behind. IMC's report is flawed and lacks fundamental understanding of cryptocurrencies." Quote, "The report exhibits that there was no clear consensus in the committee on banning. Interestingly, the committee also understands that considering the nature of the technology, banning might not be effective." To say the least. Gupta further shared with news.btc.com, quote, "As DLT is a fast evolving technology, it's recommended that a standing committee should discuss some of these points openly and more frequently with industry experts outside the government and come up with the right ways to regulate the industry effectively rather than outright banning it. The solution is to educate, regulate, and allowing people to innovate. Meanwhile, there are several ways the community can help the Indian government understand crypto. News.btc.com previously reported on some ideas for the community to help. Shetty urges all Indians, quote, "Write physical letters to your local MPs or finance minister and prime minister explaining why this IMC report is flawed. Do you think Garg's voluntary retirement is related to his crypto recommendations? Do you think the Indian government will adopt the bill by Garg's committee as is?" Let us know in the comments below. And let's see if anybody did comment on this thing. Ooh, there are 3 comments. The first is by Rinkesh Jha. One thing is that millions of cryptocurrency users have been purchasing cryptocurrency tokens in India, and it is known that cryptocurrency working on economics, demand, and supply. In such a case, if the Indian government banned cryptocurrencies in India, then suddenly cryptocurrency rates will decrease at a time. Cryptocurrency users have no choice to sell cryptocurrency at a profit rate or his cryptocurrency buy rates. In this case, Indian government should pay his losses, but I think Indian government will not be able to afford it. So fearlessly do trading in cryptocurrency. Many of my bitcoins are in Indian cryptocurrency wallet, Buyucoin, and I will do trading without fear. If government panel has been decided to ban cryptocurrency in India, then what are the next steps taken by the government for its own people who want cryptocurrency legal in India? So many users have accounts in many Indian cryptocurrency exchanges like Buyucoin. Dude, it seems like this is written by somebody who doesn't understand English. Yeah. Dejane J. Singh says, "Cry all you want and use your flawed example like Twitter comments all you want. The result is not going to change. Cryptocurrency is banned and will remain banned. Investing in these scams are luxury of wealthy and brain-dead people of West. In a country like India, there is no scope and no need. This is the biggest Ponzi scheme ever, and when it fails, don't want hard money of Indians to drain with it." Yeah, okay. Manyan Kalyan responds, "You know nothing, Jon Snow. Go research monetary policy and how much value currencies have lost in the past century. Here's a clue. The USD alone has lost about 97% of its buying power. All Indian does is ape the West. Whether is the Constitution or the monetary policy. I could go on, but I'm not sure if you're able to comprehend." There are a lot of people that simply can't understand, and that's that's not limited to just the ground level. It's pretty much universal. The way to understand cryptocurrencies is to take a piece of deprecated hardware that you've got in your house and find a small cryptocurrency that you could conceivably mine a few of them, actually find blocks on, and download a mining program for it, sign up for a mining pool account, and get to mining. That's right, just mine. And when you're able to accrue enough coins to actually sell out onto an exchange or use in a transaction, transact it with somebody. Whether it would be sending it to an exchange account or sending it to another person who has a wallet, and send it to them. Send it to the exchange. And then get a wallet for another cryptocurrency, maybe one that you can't mine profitably, like Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that. And send some coins from the exchange, sell the coins that you mined for another coin that you couldn't mine, and then send that coin to your wallet. When you do that, you will have the base to understand exactly what's going on here in cryptocurrencies. Because then, say you got it paid out in Ethereum, then it's exchangeable for a number of ERC20 tokens, several of which are available on decentralized exchanges. And these are all monetary units that can be used as money, or at least many of them are. When you actually use cryptocurrencies as money, that's the way you understand them. And see, enough of the upper tranches of government and whatnot have themselves participated in cryptocurrencies and done so at a vast profit to themselves. Profits that they really don't feel are necessary to report anywhere. It's not just little people that are simply ignoring a lot of the regulations involved. There are, as we noted earlier, the Venezuelan government themselves are utilizing Bitcoin to circumvent limitations that they have on access to US dollars. So what do you think is going to happen in the smaller, with smaller individual people? I think they're going to use cryptocurrencies, but not necessarily Libra coin. And Libra coin is really funny, to me at least, because I've been around long enough to have seen several waves of altcoins and several trends of waves, or several waves of trends in altcoins. One of which being like commodity backing, or backing by currencies, or even backing by a basket of currencies, such as the petro. But we've also seen other trends, such as cryptocurrencies claiming to be associated or having coverage within the country of Switzerland. Several with Zug. And then others, such as with Facebook, they claim to have some sort of association or coverage through the finance ministry of Switzerland. But there have been even other trends, such as simply copying and pasting either the code or the white paper, or the code and the white paper of other projects, some of which are actually live and trading on several cryptocurrency exchanges right now. But it's very rare that you have one currency that does all of these things. And, as of yet, has yet to produce any product. We even had a trend where there were projects that made all kinds of announcements about coming out that copied their white paper and their code from other projects and never actually delivered. Currently, this one fits that bill. And it's on Cointelegraph.com by Max Body. let's refresh this because I don't think it was authored 7 minutes ago. It was 9 hours ago. So yes, penis. MIT fellow and NYU math professor says Libra copied off co-authored paper. Alexander Lipton, a connection science fellow at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and adjunct professor of mathematics at New York University, NYU, has claimed that Libra's white paper copied concepts for a coin proposed in his academic work. Lipton co-authored the paper, quote, Digital Trade Coin, towards a more stable digital currency in 2018. In a July 26 interview with CoinDesk, Lipton said, quote, without being particularly obnoxious, I can tell you that the actual structure of Libra is pretty much lifted verbatim from the paper which Sandy Pentland and Thomas Harjano and I published last year. Additionally, Lipton noted that this work was, quote, not mentioned in the Libra document at all, and that some of the same ideas were presented in an earlier version of the paper with Pentland, which received the cover spot for an issue of Scientific American. While the structure of the paper may be the same, some details of the implementation are not. Lipton mentions that the paper proposed Tradecoin DTC would likely be backed by traditional commodities. The authors wrote, quote, for instance, depending on their resources and abilities, sponsors can contribute gold, oil, base metals, and agricultural commodities. Given that storage of significant amounts of the above is difficult and costly, it is natural to use collateral which is in storage already, thus making stored commodities economically productive. In his recent interview, Lipton confirmed that the way Facebook is backing their virtual currency is not what the authors had in mind for their proposal. Quote, we were thinking about raw material producers, supranational organizations, and possibly a couple of large-scale payment providers, but certainly not the likes of Uber. Monetary theory and issues with Libra. While Libra has billed itself as offering financial inclusion for people around the world in its white paper as well as in one of its recent Libra hearings, Lipton cautioned that Libra's design could cause massive inflation in developing countries. Quote, in developing countries, it will cause enormous inflation because the amount of money will be kind of doubled, roughly speaking. In fact, much more than doubled. I am not a big fan of quantity theory of money, but I am absolutely certain that this amount of money explodes. Prices will go up. More copied ideas. On June 22nd, Ethereum World News also reported that the decentralized public network project Hedera Hashgraph also claimed that Libra copied ideas from them, specifically the Libra Association's governance model. As previously reported by Cointelegraph, research by the Wall Street Journal near tail end of 2018 indicated that hundreds of initial coin offerings white papers, roughly 16%, were flagged for possible fraudulent activity, improbable returns, and plagiarism. So yeah, this is nothing new in cryptocurrency, folks. It's probably going to continue. We're probably going to see multiple new waves of people copying one another. You know, this isn't like music where, you know, we start a trend and everything goes with that trend for a little while and then it peters out and then people shift to something else. This is monetary value. So yeah. Let's get into some comments here. This one guy, 301 times. Oh, wait a minute. Michael S. says, should we be surprised? Zuckerberg stole the idea of Facebook from the Winklevoss twins, so copying/stealing is par for the course for this guy. Yep. 301 by 485 by Weed Delivery, and that's like a really long name. In response, says Gemini, Winklevoss brothers, and the other constellation or zodiac sign Libra fucksuck. For any semi-intelligent person, you definitely want to be purchasing Square stock under $100. It's on sale, and it gives you the ability to cash out. Cash out. Yeah, whatever. It looks like a commercial for something. Binance says to congratulate. No. Bunch of bullshit. Anyway, no, I'm not really surprised. The fact is that such copying has always been a part of crypto. Since as early as I want to say like 2013, 2014 with the first of the altcoins, that it was endemic. You know, it's like people couldn't have an original thought without 10 other people glomming onto them and just walking off with it. And then came a bunch of people who took a bunch of people's ideas and cobbled them together and came up with something new. And then people copied them. It's like an evolution of ideas kind of thing. But there is also the Darwinianism of ideas. Not all ideas are as good as one another. Some of them work. Some of them, they didn't even come up with a fucking product before they died. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And as far as where I want to go, we already played some Maiden. Let's get in some Irreversible Mechanism. And think a little Simulacra here on Coin Metal. And that was Within the Ruins with Elite. Man, I don't know what it is, but Twitter is being like total butthole. I mean, I'm having the hardest time getting it to load worth of shit. Here we go. Finally got it to like reload 8 times. And now it's going to let me do what I want to do. Maybe? No? Still going to fuck up on me. Fucking Twitter. Jack, fix your shit, man. First you fuck up the layout. And now it's not performing worth the shit, dude. Very unfortunate. Because I use Twitter a lot. And it's unfortunate that it's happening like right now too, because you know I'm using Twitter right now. Fucking son of a bitch. Anyway, as far as what we're gonna get into next, I've been holding this one, and I got one other that I've been kind of holding. You know what it is? I think I've got some sort of fucking miner or some shit in the background sucking up my fucking system resources, and so it's causing everything to fuck up. Or not everything, but some stuff. And it's weird because it's like I'll close the tab and then I'll go back over to Twitter and it'll work for just a moment, and then it turns shit again. It's fucking weird. It's got to be like some fucking tab I've got has a goddamn shadow miner or some shit in it. Getting crypto jacked, man, I'm telling you. Fucking, that's another thing that we've seen waves of, crypto jacking. And it does usually seem to coincide with a little bit of price action, people trying to get their filthy lucre. And I think this is another reason why we're not really seeing a whole lot of urgency with regard to regulating cryptocurrencies, is because the people in high places themselves are doing the crypto jacking. You know, they're competing just like everybody else for that precious Bitcoin. And they'll go about whatever means they have available to do it, just like the rest of you do. Only they have different means. So, yeah. Anyway, getting this... Dude, this tweet has been like the longest tweet ever. I'm still waiting for the fucking tweet button to work right. Shit. That has been like... That was like the worst tweet ever. Man. Anyway, let me get this pasted here and copied again. Pasted. Man, it's kind of difficult running all of this yourself. I know now why Joe Rogan has young Jamie take care of all this shit on the fly. Anyway, I've got this article here on Zero Hedge, and I feel it's kind of emblematic about what we've been talking about here. And so here it is. Michael Hudson, U.S. Economic Warfare and Likely Foreign Defenses. And this is by Tyler Durden, authored on Saturday, July 27, 2019 at 12:05 a.m. Today's world is at war on many fronts. The rules of international law and order put in place toward the end of World War II are being broken by U.S. foreign policy escalating its confrontation with countries that refrain from giving its companies control of their economic surpluses. Countries that do not give the United States control of their oil and financial sectors or privatize their key sectors are being isolated by the United States, imposing trade sanctions and unilateral tariffs, giving special advantages to U.S. producers in violation of free trade agreements with European, Asian, and other countries. The global fracture has an increasingly military cast. U.S. officials justify tariffs and import quotas illegal under WTO rules on, quote, national security grounds, claiming that the United States can do whatever it wants as the world's, quote, exceptional nation. U.S. officials explain that this means that their nation is not obliged to adhere to international agreements or even to its own treaties and promises. This allegedly sovereign right to ignore on its international agreements was made explicit after Bill Clinton and his Secretary of State Madeleine Albright broke the promise by President George Bush and Secretary of State James Baker that NATO would not expand eastward after 1991. "You didn't get it in writing," was the U.S. response to the verbal agreements that were made. Likewise, the Trump administration repudiated the multilateral Iranian nuclear agreement signed by the Obama administration and is escalating warfare with its proxy armies in the Near East. U.S. politicians are waging a new Cold War against Russia, China, Iran, and oil-exporting countries that the United States is seeking to isolate if it cannot control their government's central bank and foreign diplomacy. The international framework that originally seemed equitable was pro-U.S. from the outset. In 1945, this was seen as a natural result of the fact that the U.S. economy was the least war-damaged and held by far most of the world's monetary gold. Still, the post-war trade and financial framework was ostensibly set up on fair and equitable international principles. Other countries were expected to recover and grow, creating diplomatic, financial, and trade parity with each other. But the past decade has seen U.S. diplomacy become one-sided in turning the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, SWIFT bank clearing system, and world trade into an asymmetrically exploitative system. This unilateral U.S.-centered array of institutions is coming to be widely seen not only as unfair, but as blocking the progress of other countries whose growth and prosperity is seen by U.S. foreign policy as a threat to unilateral U.S. hegemony. What began as an ostensibly international order to promote peaceful prosperity has turned increasingly into an extension of U.S. nationalism, predatory rent extraction, and a more dangerous military confrontation. Deterioration of international diplomacy into a more nakedly explicit pro-U.S. financial trade and military aggression was implicit in the way in which economic diplomacy was shaped when the United Nations, IMF, and World Bank were shaped mainly by U.S. economic strategists. Their economic belligerence is driving countries to withdraw from the global financial and trade order that has been turned into a new Cold War vehicle to impose unilateral U.S. hegemony. Nationalistic reactions are consolidating into new economic and political alliances from Europe to Asia. We are still mired in the oil war that escalated in 2003 with the invasion of Iraq, which quickly spread to Libya and Syria. American foreign policy has long been based largely on control of oil. This has led the United States to oppose the Paris Accords to stem global warming. It's aimed to give U.S. officials the power to impose energy sanctions, forcing other countries to, quote, freeze in the dark if they do not follow U.S. leadership. To expand its oil monopoly, America is pressuring Europe to oppose the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline from Russia, claiming that this would make Germany and other countries dependent on Russia instead of the U.S. liquefied natural gas. Likewise, American oil diplomacy has imposed unilateral sanctions against Iranian oil exports until such time as a regime change opens that country's oil reserves to the U.S. French, British, and other allied oil majors. U.S. control of dollarized money and credit is critical to its hegemony. As Congressman Brad Sherman of Los Angeles told a House Financial Services Committee hearing on May 9th of 2019, an awful lot of our international power comes from the fact that the U.S. dollar is the standard unit of international finance and transactions. Clearing through the New York Fed is critical for major oil and other transactions. It is the announced purpose of the supporters of cryptocurrency to take that power away from us, to put us in a position where the most significant sanctions we have against Iran, for example, would become irrelevant. The U.S. aim is to keep the dollar as the transactions currency for world trade, savings, central bank reserves, and international lending. This monopoly status enables the U.S. Treasury and State Department to disrupt the financial payment system and trade for countries with which the United States is at economic or outright military war. Russian President Vladimir Putin quickly responded by describing, quote, the degeneration of the universalist globalization model is turning into a parody, a caricature of itself, where common international rules are replaced with the laws of one country. This is the trajectory on which this deterioration of formerly open international trade and finance is now moving. It has been building up for a decade. On June 5, 2009, then Russian President Dmitry Medvedev cited the same disruptive U.S. dynamic at work in the wake of the U.S. junk mortgage and bank fraud crisis. Those whose job it is to forecast events were not ready for the depth of the crisis and turned out to be too rigid, unwieldy, and slow in their response. The international financial organizations, and I think we need to state this up front and not try to hide it, were not up to their responsibilities, as has been said quite unambiguously at a number of major international events, such as the two recent G20 summits of the world's largest economies. Furthermore, we have had confirmation that our pre-crisis analysis of global economic trends and the global economic system were correct. The artificially maintained unipolar system and preservation of monopolies in key global economic sectors are root causes of the crisis. One big center of consumption, financed by a growing deficit and thus growing debts, one formerly strong reserve currency, and one dominant system of assessing assets and risks. These are all factors that led to an overall drop in the quality of regulation and the economic justification of assessments made, including assessments of macroeconomic policy. As a result, there was no avoiding a global crisis. That crisis is what is now causing today's break in global trade and payments. Warfare on many fronts, with dollarization being the main arena. Dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991 did not bring the disarmament that was widely expected. U.S. leadership celebrated the Soviet demise as signaling the end of foreign opposition to U.S.-sponsored neoliberalism, and even as the end of history. NATO expanded to encircle Russia and sponsored, quote, colored revolutions from Georgia to Ukraine, while carving up former Yugoslavia and into small statelets. American diplomacy created a foreign legion of Wahhabi fundamentalists from Afghanistan to Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Libya in support of Saudi Arabian extremism and Israeli expansionism. The United States is waging war for control of oil against Venezuela, where a military coup failed a few years ago, as did the 2018-2019 stunt to recognize an unelected pro-American puppet regime. The Honduran coup under President Obama was more successful in overthrowing an elected president advocating land reform, continuing the tradition dating back to 1954 when the CIA overthrew Guatemala's Arbenz regime. U.S. officials bear a special hatred for countries that they have injured, ranging from Guatemala in 1954 to Iran, whose regime it overthrew to install the Shah as a military dictator. Claiming to promote democracy, U.S. diplomacy has redefined the word to mean, quote, pro-American, and opposing land reform, land ownership of raw materials, and public subsidy of foreign agriculture or industry as, quote, an undemocratic attack on free markets, meaning markets controlled by the U.S., financial interests, and absentee owners of land, natural resources, and banks. A major byproduct of warfare has always been refugees, and today's wave fleeing ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other U.S.-backed Near Eastern proxies is flooding Europe. A similar wave is fleeing dictatorial regimes backed by the United States from Honduras, Ecuador, Colombia, and neighboring countries. A refugee crisis has become a major factor, leading to a resurgence of nationalist parties throughout Europe and for the white nationalism of Donald Trump and the United States. I don't get that whole association with color for white nationalism. How about nationalism, period? Dollarization is a vehicle for U.S. nationalism. And you know what? That's another thing. The association of the U.S. explicitly with the Federal Reserve note, that in itself is kind of ambiguous. Anyway, continuing. The dollar standard, U.S. Treasury debt to foreigners held by the world's central banks, has replaced the gold exchange standard for the world's central bank reserves to settle payments imbalances among themselves. This has enabled the United Nations to uniquely run balance of payments deficits for nearly 70 years, despite the fact that these Treasury IOUs have little visible likelihood of being repaid, except under arrangements where U.S. rent-seeking and outright financial tribute from other enablers enables it to liquidate its foreign national debt. Or its official foreign debt, my apologies, sir. The United States is the only nation that can run sustained balance of payments deficits without having to sell off its assets to raise interest rates to borrow foreign money. No other national economy in the world can afford foreign military expenditures on any major scale without losing its exchange value. Without the Treasury bill standard, the United States would be in this same position along with other nations. This is why Russia, China, and other powers that U.S. strategists deem to be strategic rivals and enemies are looking to restore gold's role as the preferred asset to settle payments imbalances. The U.S. response is to impose regime change on countries that prefer gold or other foreign currencies to dollars for their exchange reserves. A case in point is the overthrow of Libya's Omar Gaddafi after he sought to base his nation's international reserves on gold. His liquidation stands as a military warning to other countries. Thanks to the fact that payment surplus economies invest their dollar inflows in U.S. Treasury bonds, the U.S. balance of payments deficit finances its domestic budget deficit. This foreign central bank recycling of U.S. overseas military spending into purchases of U.S. Treasury securities gives the United States a free ride, financing its budget, also mainly military in character, so that it can taxing its own citizens. Okay. Trump is forcing other countries to create an alternative to the dollar standard. The fact that Donald Trump's economic policies are proving ineffective in restoring American manufacturing is creating rising nationalist pressure to exploit foreigners by arbitrary tariffs without regard for international law, and to impose trade sanctions and diplomatic meddling to disrupt regimes that pursue policies that U.S. diplomats do not like. That's another thing. The association with Trump with all of this stuff, I think, is kind of unfortunate. He is the commander-in-chief, so he does wear it. But one thing that I've seen about his foreign policy has been that I think he knows that the age of oil is ending, and I honestly believe that the tariffs are preparing us for that. Just because we haven't seen a major shift to manufacturing in the United States, I believe that over time we will. That the tariffs that we're seeing put on imports are not going to go away with Trump. That they'll stay in place because whoever does replace him, if in fact he does get replaced, they're going to see really quick that the age of oil is ending. And so the viability of transporting goods 8,000 miles from fucking China to the United States is going down. And when it becomes too expensive to ship that shit, we are going to have to do something here in order to sustain our actual consumptive demand. Anyway, continuing on. There is a parallel here with Rome in the late 1st century. It stripped its provinces to pay for its military deficit, the grain dole, and land redistribution at the expense of Italian cities and Asia Minor. This created foreign opposition to drive Rome out. The U.S. economy is similar to Rome's, extractive rather than productive, based mainly on land rents and money interest. As the domestic market is impoverished, U.S. politicians are seeking to take from abroad what no longer is being produced at home. What is so ironic and self-defeating of America's free global ride is that Trump's simplistic aim of lowering the dollar's exchange rate to make U.S. exports more price competitive. He imagines commodity trade to be the entire balance of payments, as if there were no military spending, not to mention lending and investment. To lower the dollar's exchange rate, he is demanding that China's central bank and those of other countries stop supporting the dollar by recycling the dollars they receive for their exports into holdings of U.S. Treasury securities. This tunnel vision leaves out of account the fact that the trade balance is not simply a matter of comparative international price levels. The United States has dissipated its supply of spare manufacturing capacity and local suppliers of parts and materials, while much of its industrial engineering and skilled manufacturing labor has retired. An immense shortfall must be filled by this new capital investment, education, and public infrastructure whose charges are far above those of other economies. Trump's infrastructure ideology is a public-private partnership characterized by high-cost financialization, demanding high monopoly rents to cover its interest charges, stock dividends, and management fees. This neoliberal policy raises the cost of living for the U.S. labor force, making it uncompetitive. The United States is unable to produce more at any price right now because it has spent the past half-century dismantling its infrastructure, closing down its part suppliers, and outsourcing its industrial technology. The United States has privatized and financialized infrastructure and basic needs, such as public health and Medicare, or medical care, education, and transportation that other countries have kept in their public domain to make their economics more cost-efficient by providing essential services at subsidized prices or freely. The United States has also led the practice of debt pyramiding from housing to corporate finance. This financial engineering and wealth creation by inflating debt-financed real estate and stock market bubbles has made the United States a high-cost economy that cannot compete successfully with well-managed mixed economies. Unable to recover dominance in manufacturing, the United States is concentrating on rent-extracting sectors that it hopes to monopolize, headed by information technology and military production. On the industrial front, it threatens to disrupt China and other mixed economies by imposing trade and financial sanctions. Yeah, I'm going to cut that one short. There is a bit more to this. A lot of this is true, but I think a lot of it is misattributed. But the underlying assumptions there are solid, or at least consistent with actuality. And it's yet again one of those other structures that Bitcoin was kind of designed to challenge. Because we do not have the military expenditure dependencies on Bitcoin that the US dollar has on it. And so when it comes down to it, I think that people will be reevaluating their money according to the values that those who both mine it and transact in it exhibit. And when those people that are transacting in Bitcoin are not supporting military expansionism or U.S. hegemony or anything like that, I think that will be a positive check mark for them in lieu of people trying to escape the support of this kind of system. And it is with that I'd like to close this one out. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I'd like y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. As far as our last dance is concerned, I've kind of been saving it for last. A little bit of Slipknot here. Custer, Last Dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening. You all have an excellent evening. Good night.